Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And you are the first person from South America that I've had on the show,
That's great.
let
I
alone
make a
Colombia.
Go ahead.
I said, let alone from Colombia. You're the first person from South America and Colombia. So you're crossing off two. Now it's one more continent that I have. I've had Europe and I've had Australia. I've had Canada. I've had obviously United States and I've had Ireland and now Colombia. So, I'm getting there when it comes to trying to make this worldwide. Now, my favorite question to ask Laura is what's your sober date?
Well, it was on February 15th of, let me see, because it's been 4 years and a half right now. So my fifth year will be next year.
So
Mm,
2020,
Yes,
right before COVID, huh?
yes, exactly.
What was happening on February 14th of 2020?
I had recently lost pregnancy. So I had been in rehab. I went out. I did good for like a month. Then I had this loss that I didn't know how to handle, and I relapsed. So that day I was having an issue with my partner at the time, and I was contemplating using again the worst substance that I used to do, which was crack. So I was like, tomorrow I have to make a decision because I got the chance to see my two older kids, and I was like, if I'm gonna throw everything away, I cannot go and see them. And if I want to see them, then I need to be in a better state of mind than like go back to being sober. So I had a very awful night. I was feeling very bad. And the next day, I was like, what if I just give it a chance? Like, the drugs will still be there, the streets will be there, but my chance to have my kids back probably is not going to be there, and they are going to be older. So um, that was like the my thought process for getting to the conclusion of, okay, so today I'm gonna give it a chance and let's see how it goes, if it lasts, and it has worked so far.
That's a good motivation is to make sure you're sober for the kids.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
but to be honest, still to this day, sometimes that's the only motivation, but not always.
yeah. And I'd say right now you have time on your hands so that you can kind of play the tape through to know that if you used again, it would be a bad conclusion. It'd be a bad ending.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And I have, go ahead.
You're from Colombia,
Yes,
born and raised there.
yes, all my life.
Well, you speak good English.
Thank you. I make my living of it. I work in a call center, and I have been working ever since I got sober. That was my second job in a call center, so that's what I do. So I need to like keep a good level so everyone will understand me.
That's a good motivation to stay speaking English. So you're born and raised in Colombia. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have on my dad's side two brothers and one sister, but we were never close. I had a step brother on my dad's side as well, but we also were never close. So I do have them. I know them. Everything's okay, but there's not like a strong uh, relationship.
So your parents were never married?
No, never. When I was born, they were already separated.
How was that growing up being like an only child?
It was very lonely, very, very lonely, especially because my dad was an alcoholic and my mom was a workaholic. So she was never around, like very rarely, maybe once a week. Like I will see her prior of going to school, and then I will go to bed at night and I wouldn't see her like during the day. So it was very lonely.
Yeah, I can imagine. So your mom was a single mom?
Yes, of course. She never had any boyfriends, or like I never had a stepdad or anything like that. She always did it on her own. Sometimes she got help from my uncle or my aunts, but that was it.
And we call that in America a latchkey kid, one that has to take care of themselves at a young age and make sure that you're fed and make sure you go to bed at a decent time. And it's basically where you have to parent yourself as a child.
Yes. I I was happy to do it because I felt like I made her happy, like I was helping her somehow by not being an issue. So I was a very well behaved, very quiet. Growing up, I was never like my trouble started when I was like 13, around that time. But when I was a child, I was like poster, like just perfect,
I was
almost.
just going to ask, what did you discover first, drinking or alcohol? Drinking or alcohol? Did you discover first alcohol or drugs?
I will say, I know this is not included, but I will say that the first step was smoking cigarettes because my mom will smoke, my aunts will smoke. There was a designated area in the house for that. And then when I went back home one day, I was like, why don't I do what they do? Right. So, mind you, I was like 11, and I was like, okay, so they smoke and they drink. But for some reason, I was more scared of the drinking, maybe because of what I had seen my dad do,
Yeah.
than the smoke. So once I smoked, I was like, this is not bad. Like it doesn't feel good, but I can do it. I'm grown, right?
As
So why
as a
can I
kid
not?
too, it gives you a little head high.
Yes, of course.
Because I started
Of
smoking when I was 13, and I remember those head highs. Do you still? How old are you now?
I still struggle with nicotine, but I've been able to quit uh, a bunch of times. The longest that I've been without it has been probably 2 years during COVID. It was during COVID.
Yeah, I use nicotine gum.
Oh,
I
how is it?
chew.
I've never tried it.
It's good for if you work at a call center. My job is I schedule for a hospital system all day long. So I'm constantly on the phone with patients trying to schedule their appointments, and I can't go outside to smoke as much as I would like. So I eat nicotine gum all day long in order to like stave off the cravings. And then I'll go outside and have a cigarette on my lunch break or during my designated breaks. But when I'm working and I'm feeling like I need a cigarette, it's nice to just pop a piece of gum in my mouth and get that feeling of smoke. Um, so I would check it out. I get it prescribed to me, so I only pay a little dollar copay and get a whole box of it. So it works out if you're doing a call center job. How old are you now, Laura?
I'm 28.
28. Okay, so you're getting it at a young age. That's good. You figured it out early. So you discovered cigarettes when you were 11, and what did you discover next? Alcohol or drugs?
Alcohol. It was whiskey. A lot of whiskey. They had like a lot of bottles in the house and they didn't notice. Like at first I just will drink like maybe a little bit. I was like, this is gross. But they do it for a reason, right? So I wanted to understand why, because everyone in my family was drinking almost daily, not getting drunk daily, but every like leisure time or happy time was related to alcohol. So I wanted to understand, why am I annoying? But this is, even though it tastes awful, why this is like happy and like everything's great with this. But when I go and say something, I'm super annoying. So this must be great. That was like what I was thinking. So it was alcohol for a long time. Well, maybe 2 years of only alcohol, and it was not I wouldn't say I used to get drunk. I will feel a little bit dizzy, but not to the point where I was like blacking out or throwing up or anything
Falling
like
down
that.
drunk. Yeah. You would get a what we call buzz,
Yes, exactly.
where you get that warm blanket feeling over top of you. Um, and so you drank until you were 15?
Well, when I was 13, I met my first boyfriend and he introduced me to, the rest or at least a lot of other drugs. So I started smoking pot. But at the time, I didn't really enjoy it. I was still very scared that I knew I was not supposed to do that. No one in my family ever did that. So I was like, this is like a different step. But I wanted to be cool, for him. So I did it when I was with him. And I learned how to roll. I learned how to load the pipe. I learned how to buy, how much it costed, um, and he will like give it to me and I will keep it. I will not like spend it, or I wouldn't crave it or anything when I was not with him, but I learned a lot about it during that time. And I discovered also LSD. Like it was prior to, like it was when I was still pure, because now they mixed it with a lot of other things. At the time it was like pure LSD, so it was, I did like it, that one a lot.
Me
As well.
too. Me too, Laura. I took it a lot when I was in my early 20s. I took it a lot, and I can honestly say I loved the feeling it produced. It was like smoking 8 blunts at one time, the body high, and then the things that I would see and hallucinate. Like I, I very much enjoy. I never had a bad. Did you ever have a bad trip?
I did, but it was way like years later. Like when I first discovered it, my first, let's say, I don't know, 8 trips were amazing, just everything amazing.
So you're smoking weed, you're doing acid, and you're a teenager. How were your school grades?
Pretty good. I love to learn. Was, I love to read. I love to investigate other things. Like I used to be so obnoxious. I was like, school doesn't teach you anything. All the teachers are stupid. So you just need to go and learn on your own because this is. So I still had pretty good grades. I still could, like my cognitive skills were not affected by, at least at that time, up until I was like 15, I will say. And I was using every weekend, but not on the weekdays, not on school days, only like maybe drinking at home, but it was like 1 2 drinks. It was not um, like a heavy habit at the time. Um, and then what changed was that I got pregnant at 16. So I was like, okay, everything has to change now. It was a high risk pregnancy. I had I don't remember how you call it in English, but it's a device that has a T shape and it goes into the uterus. I think they banned it from the US, but they still use that here in South America. It's made out of copper. So it's supposed to be super safe, like 99% safe. But I was pregnant with it and it was on the placenta. So it was super dangerous. They told me like 50-50. The baby makes it and everything's okay. Or the baby doesn't make it and you get a super bad infection. So you should get an abortion. That was like what the doctor said. So I went to get like a second, third, fifth opinion, and everyone said the same thing. And I was super scared, I never wanted to have kids. I didn't even want it to like live. I was always a very depressive person. So I was like, what am I gonna do? Because my relationship was also super bad. My boyfriend was like 5 years older than me. It was not good. But I was like, okay, I feel if it's such a high risk and the baby still makes it, it was because God wanted it to happen. And if it doesn't, then the same thing. So I was like, this is not gonna be my choice. It's gonna be whatever God wants for me. If He decides that I'm capable of being a mother, then maybe I am. That was my thought process at the time. So I had him. He just turned 11 this month, and it was very challenging. But I was sober. Like the moment they told me you're pregnant, I had no trouble, no cravings, no. Uh, I wish I could nothing. That pregnancy, the whole 9 months, I was like, okay, my life is gonna be different. So I'm not gonna drink. I'm not gonna do anything. It was I was a very good mom, to be honest, at the time. Like, I didn't know how to do many things, and I was very immature, but I cared a lot about my kid, like, above everything else. So, that sobriety lasted probably a year and a couple of months after he was born, because I got into university. So I went to National University, and then um, a friend was like, "Do you want to smoke some pot?" And I was like, "I've been doing great. I had very good grades. I was very responsible with all the housework. I took my kid to daycare. No one will like. I was not okay. Mom, take care of my kid while I go out. Nothing was happening. I was just going to school and then home and then school and then home. So I was like, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. So I did a little bit, and it was bad because that then I started like really enjoying it for myself. I didn't want to be cool. I didn't want to impress anyone, but it was like, I don't feel sad. I don't feel this depression. I don't feel inadequate. I don't feel like I don't fit in. I don't care because I just feel high. So I all of these feelings of being so young, and I didn't fit in with my partners because I was a mother, and I didn't fit in with other mothers because I was at school and I had like other colorful hair at the time. And so I felt really lonely, and it was like a huge I felt like a huge hug. And it started, I will say that that was the point when my use of substances and everything started being super bad for me and my family and everything else, because I started smoking like once a week, and then 1 month later I wanted to do it every day. So I was one of those cases where weed is like it can be super detrimental, very bad, because I was not functioning. I was going to class high every day, and then I was out of class and I will get high again. It was very bad. And then I discovered that, okay, so this has a smell to it. This is not socially acceptable, but drinking is. My dad drinks all the time. He has beer at home all the time. I had went to live from my mom to live with my dad, because when my baby turned 1, my mom kicked me out because I was very depressed. So, you know how when you are so depressed that you are barely functioning? So, like, you don't do laundry on time or anything on time, you just do it enough to not like go completely insane. So she didn't know how to handle that. And I was like, hi, dad. We never had a relationship growing up, but let's live together. And he still was an alcoholic. But funny enough, he stopped drinking heavily when I went to live with him, because he really loves my kid. He loves him to this day. They are super close. That relationship is amazing. But then when I was not high with weed, then I was drinking. So it became I don't even know how I went through school, to be honest with you, because I had really good grades still, but I don't remember a lot of things. I was very high. So I was sober when I woke up until I dropped off my kid, and then I will go to school and use there, and I will stop using when I knew, okay, I have 1 hour to meet my kid, so I'm gonna stop smoking or drinking. And then as soon as my baby was asleep, I was like, okay, so time for a beer or time for smoke again or whatever. So I was doing what I had to do. I was going to school, I was doing chores, I was taking care of my kid,
What was the
but I
drinking
was,
age?
I'm sorry, what?
The drinking age?
Here is 18.
Okay. It's 21 here.
Oh, okay. Now here is 18, but you can really get it. Like a child can go to a store. If it's like a neighborhood store, they
Yeah.
will sell it to anyone. But my
Yeah.
dad always had at home. I didn't even have to buy it because he had like cases and cases of beer and vodka, and he didn't even realize that I was drinking. It was like, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was bad. And then I met the when my kid was 1 and I moved with my dad, I ended my relationship with the father of my first son because he broke a glass on the. He was very violent, but he was never violent around the kid or with the kid. So it was like I was like, okay, I can handle this. I can take it. I don't want to be a single mom. But one day he broke a glass, and Miguel was like not even 1 meter away, and I was like, no, this is too much. I cannot do this because the next time, what's gonna happen? So I ended that. So I was drinking and smoking, and I met this super amazing guy, and I fell in love. And he was not so amazing after all, and he was also violent after all. And that I got pregnant again. I we were like it was traumatic. It was not consensual. So that was very messed up, because I wanted to have a family. I didn't want to be a single mom again. So in my mind, I was like, I have to make this work, even though he is the way he is. I have to make it work. He has always been kind to Miguel. Maybe he will be kind to our baby too, and I can make it work. But this pregnancy, the sobriety was hard. Like I had cravings all the time. I did good. I didn't smoke or drink, but it took me it was so hard for me to stay like to keep a good state of mind and not be all the time like I wish I was drinking, I wish I was smoking, this feels awful, I'm not going to be able to do anything. And my dad was like, I'm going to keep you in school, I'm going to pay like for everything at school, but you cannot work because if you start working, then you're not going to do good at school. And you have been doing good, even though you are doing all of this stupid stuff. So, and my tuition was not super expensive, but it could not be covered with minimum wage. And I didn't know, like, my English was not that good. I didn't have any self esteem or self confidence. So I didn't feel like I could make it without his help. So that was very hard having my second kid. And then when I was pregnant, this person just vanished in the air for like 3 months and came back after cheating with like five, six women. And he also told my university had a Facebook page, and he will say a lot of things about me. Half of them were true, half of them were not. But then when I went to school, everyone was looking at me, and I didn't know why. And they would talk, and it was like I had seen that only on USA in high school shows when everyone was mean to someone. I
Yeah.
had never ever seen that on real life, let alone happen to me. So I was like, what? Mind you, I was like super pregnant going to classes, right? And everyone will point at me and laugh and be like, and I was like, why? So then I went to his Facebook when he wanted us to go back together before the baby was born. And I found out why. It was so humiliating. I was throwing up because it was really, the word is disgusting. Like, he has some mental issues. And later on, he ended up being medicated, like with psychiatric medication.
Psychiatry.
Exactly. Because yeah, he has some serious issues. So my sobriety with my second son lasted for about 6 months after he was born, for as long as I breastfed him. And then I was like, same as with my first kid. And then I was like, okay, so I'm gonna. Oh, I found some pot that I had saved, but I didn't remember. I was cleaning and I was like, what if I do this? This is supernatural. Maybe this time, right? Maybe this time I will do better. So it was not better. It was not better. I did very bad. I did good for like a month maybe. And I was also doing translation, so I started earning some money even though I was in school. But I started like making homework for other people and translating documents, doing some. I was teaching some classes to people that were just entering my career because our university didn't have clear that you had to know English to go through my major. So I will help them and they will give me some money. So now I had money. So it was good because I could buy things for my kids, but I could also buy more drugs, right? So I was like, why don't I sell drugs? Great idea, right? I'm at the university. I have access to all these people that I love weed. So why don't I sell it? So I started making more money and I started doing bad at school. But that point,
What's that?
because
Your microphone went down.
so I started doing bad at school, and but now I had more money. So I was like, my parents cannot tell me anything because I'm buying things for my kids and I'm still at school. I'm not doing bad. I'm not doing good, but I'm still there. So one night, at this point, I was doing also tramadol. I think you say the same word in English.
Tramadol.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
like another.
it's an opiate. It's
Yes,
a pain. It's for pain.
yes. They sent it to me for a headache while I was pregnant, but then I was reading that it was not good, that it was too strong, so I just saved it. I didn't use it at the time. And then on this time that I'm telling you that I'm doing bad at school, I found the jar and I was like, this looks like fun. So that was so bad because I was drinking and then mixing it with this drug that made the drink even like very much stronger, and then also smoking. And I was functioning. I don't know how, to be honest. To right now, I could not imagine doing the same thing, but I was like doing chores, getting the kids, going to school. But I was a mess. My mental health was a mess. I had a lot of unresolved trauma for other things that happened, other like abuse that I endured when I was a kid for from a cousin. And at this point, everything started to come to surface because one of my classes was, uh, um, I don't remember the exact name, but it was about psychotherapy. So of course I was like reflecting on my life and I didn't know how to handle all of this and I handled it very, very poorly. And so one night I was going to a concert, a free concert. I didn't like to party, never, ever, ever. Didn't like to go out at night. My use was only at school or at home when the kids were asleep.
Yep.
But one night I went to this concert, which my parents allowed me because I never went out. So it was like this only time in the year. And I was super drunk I was with my third baby father before I was pregnant and all of this. And I was getting super depressed, and I literally threw away my phone, and he was trying to reach me. I remember I was super drunk, but I remember he was looking for me, trying to reach me, and I was like, no, I was running. I don't know towards what or from what, but I was just running, and I got lost. I ended up with a bunch of people that were doing crack. Here we have a different name, and I'm not sure if it's crack or if it's base. It's, but I know it's very similar because I've talked to people that
Were
says
you
that the effect.
smoking it all tinfoil?
Yes,
Okay,
you
so
have to.
that's what's called freebasing here.
Okay.
Freebasing. And crack is crack cocaine, and if I'm not mistaken, that's like one of your biggest drug exports in Colombia is coke.
Yes.
So that crack cocaine was probably very strong in comparison because it's so pure. Like here, coke, by the time it gets here, because it's not manufactured in the US, so by the time it gets here, it's cut with different, it's made with different like laxatives and all these different things that they do to cut the cocaine with. And if you're getting it in Colombia, that's really strong because it's more pure.
Yes.
So you got
I
lost, and then you ended up with a bunch of people who were smoking crack.
well, it was the you just said the name, and I just forgot. Like the thing with the foil that you have to put some holes on it, and then ashes, and then you put the powder in. And I had never tried it in my life. I was super drunk, and they kept offering it to me, and I was like, no, I didn't do that. They were not even trying to sell it to me. It was so weird. To this day, like being sober, I'm like, what, what, like what? Because they were also not trying to like kiss me or take me somewhere else, or it was such a weird situation. But I ended up saying yes, and I felt super powerful. I was like, nothing can harm me, nothing can hurt me. I am like, the devil and I are the same thing. No one can, I'm just bad now, and nothing bad can happen to me because I am like evil. It was this feeling that I'm untouchable. So I was like, okay, I like this. I like this. And I, there was one person with me during the whole night. We walked a lot, and I smoked a lot that night, a lot. And I had never ever tried. I never liked cocaine. I never liked ecstasy. So to me, this was a different feeling, a very different feeling. And that day, like the little stability that I had, the little drive to keep going at school, to keep trying to do things right, everything just went away from that day on. And for, I will say, like a good year, everything was just, I didn't care. I didn't I didn't care. I just wanted to die, but in this weird way. Like I didn't care what happened to me. I felt I was unable to take care of myself or the kids. So I was just like,
I know that
okay,
feeling too. I know that feeling. I in an AA meeting one time, somebody said I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to be conscious anymore.
exactly. It was just like that. And I felt like if I'm such a bad mom, my kids are better off without me. That was my thought process at the time. So I was like, I'm not able to do better. I'm not able to find any sense, purpose, fulfillment in life. Everything's so absurd. I was like this really negative nihilism where nothing makes sense, nothing can improve, I cannot improve. So I started going to, my mom lived very close to a very bad part of town where they will sell a lot of drugs. And you will talk to like one homeless person, and here that drug is super cheap, is very cheap. Like it's not even half of a dollar, and you can smoke a lot with that. So even for me, that I was not super, like, I was broke, but even for me, it was super cheap. It was way cheaper than alcohol, way cheaper than anything
Yeah.
else. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And that, I started becoming super stiff all the time. I was like doing this when I used a lot. I stopped eating. I stopped going to school. That's the best university that we have here. It's a public one. It's a one owned by the government, but it's very good. So for me to throw away my place there, I now I regret it so much, because I know I won't make it again, at least not anytime soon. Now I have three kids. I live on my own. My parents, of course, are not gonna do that again. Like, oh yes, we will pay for school while you don't work. They are not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So I just threw it all away. I was just going downtown every day, going downtown, and I was like, I'm going to school, but I will go with the worst clothing, the worst shoes, and everyone started noticing, like, okay, she usually is weird, but now there's something off. Like, I was losing a lot of weight. I was not eating, and then one day out of week, I will eat a lot. And I started, they were used to the nodding, with the opiate drug, when you are so high that you are just like out
Nodding.
of it.
We call that nodding off.
Yes. They were used to that, but this was more scary for them, because with that, at least I had some time where I was normal. But with this, all the time I was very selfish, very angry, and I didn't use, like, I'm all laughing all the time. That's how I am usually. But then I became super serious, super negative, super angry all the time, rude, using bad words with my parents, where I never in my life had done that before. So one day, oh, okay, so my partner, the one that was chasing me the day that I tried that drug, he was like, stop going downtown, just try staying here with me in our neighborhood for like 3 days. Let's see if you can do that. I'm gonna give you weed, I'm gonna give you alcohol if you want, but that other thing is too much, like, you're gonna die. So why don't we just take it easy? So I did that, and he was very loving. He ended up breaking my heart so bad. Like, I waited for him for years, and he was the worst partner, very bad father, but he literally saved my life, because I wanted to run. I was shaking. I was angry at him. I will punch him. And he was like, no, you're not leaving. Stay here with me. You can do this. And he will just not be mad at me, angry, sad. He was just loving all the time. He was like, you can do this. You can see your kids in the afternoon. Just stay here. Just stay here with me. And I think he literally saved my life, because I was, I didn't care. So when I was 3 days off it, I was like, oh, I am really not okay. I am really not okay. But that point, everyone else was like, she needs rehab. So they did an intervention, and I hadn't seen my parents together in, I don't know, like 10 years prior to that.
Yeah.
But I woke home, and it was my father, my mother, and this guy that I had never seen before, that looked like kind of homeless but not quite. So I was like, and they were like, you are going to rehab, or you are going to the streets, and you are not going to see your kids, and we are not going to take care of them. So we are going to just call what will be child services there.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I cannot be a good mother, so I'm going to think about it. And I picked up like three things, and I left. And they were like, because I was all the time with my kids, even though I was a very, like, I was an addict, but I was never one night away. I was never getting home at midnight or the other day. I was always picking them up, going home, and staying there with them until the next day I dropped them off. So I had never spent one night away from my kids. And I got so scared that I was like, okay, so I'm going away. And my partner was like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, I don't know, get high maybe. And he was like, okay, let's smoke some pot, but let's not, like, don't go downtown. And I was like, okay. And he, like, we had to sleep on the streets, we had to pay very bad places to sleep. Those were like 5 days that we were staying at very bad, dangerous places. And he had a place to sleep. Like, his mom let him sleep there, but he was like, I'm not leaving you alone. And of course, we didn't have much money. We could not get very high. We could not get very drunk. So I started thinking, of course, missing my kids a lot. Of course, looking at myself physically, like, I had lost so much weight. I had these dark spots on my face. You could see my bones. I'm naturally like fat, but I was super skinny. And I started realizing, I was like, I'm homeless and I'm losing my, what am I doing? So I called my mom and I was like, if he can go to rehab with me, I'm gonna go. And he was like, I don't want to go. And I was like, okay, I'm not going. Because of course he was taking care of me, but he also neglected the rest of his life, you know?
Yeah.
So he was also not doing good, but I was worse. So we went together. He went with me. He stayed there for 1 month. I was there for 3 months. My kids will visit me. I felt so amazing. I'm telling you, I've never ever in my life felt so good as when I was on rehab. For the first time, I had time to, like, that time that I never had, to grow up, to find out who I was, or at least why was I this way? Why was everything so painful? It was such a blessing. It
Yeah,
was,
I loved rehab too. I had such a great experience. I learned a lot who I was. I know exactly what you're saying, and I'm so glad that you're 5 years clean and sober now. Well, almost 5 years. You don't drink anymore.
no,
No
nothing.
smoking
I'm
weed.
very aware that I cannot do that.
Do you go to meetings?
I try, but it's very hard because now I live alone with my kids. So now I
Yeah,
have kids, and
there's
I
Zoom
just,
meetings.
yes, but I don't need to be alone, because I don't want them hearing how I've been depressed or something like that.
Well, I think you're doing great, Laura, and thank you for taking the time to sit down with me. I know you got a crazy schedule, so I appreciate you taking some time to sit down with me and talk about your story. It's always nice hearing the similarities in another country and how they carry over, and it doesn't matter which country you're in, the struggle is still the struggle. And I'm so glad that you're able to be a single mom to your kids and take care of them and work, and that's a testament to how your recovery is for the last 5 years.
Thank you. And I really believe that the meetings that I had in rehab and all the NA program, at least that's what worked for me. I have friends from different parts in the world, and I really believe that all addicts can relate in a way. I think it's like a universal experience, and so is recovery. So I am really happy to be here for that reason. Maybe someone listens to me and is in a similar situation and can be like, okay, maybe I can do it too. Because nowadays, even though I have cravings and sometimes I'm depressed, I know that everything will be worse if I had that drink, if I smoked that pipe, if I. So I'm very, very happy to be sober, to be able to do this, and to be a functioning human being. So thank you very much.
No problem. Have a great day, Laura.
Thank you. The same for you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.